In the 70s and 80s, they were just volume based. It was just like tube with some spacers and washers and things of that nature. All it was just volume, and you just sucked up all the pressures from a volume can. So they were typically long and large diameter and everything else. When I came in and actually I started doing a lot of experimenting, and in '93 came up with the baffles that were jetted, notched and stuff, worked around the equipment that I had, which is easier to do than design something where you don't have equipment for, you can't build it anyway. So we build it around what equipment we have, and we took everything, well, typically a 9mm suppressor in that time period. One company had an 8-inch by 1 5/8, and I came up with a 7-inch by 1 1/4. And actually beat him by about 7 or 8 dB. So we learned that, jetting the baffles and things are typically the way to go and increase your efficiency and make them smaller and lighter and quieter. So we've been doing that during that time. I came up with a helical, was one of my first ones we did. It's probably one of the quietest 5.56 cans I ever heard. It was a little bit difficult to manufacture because I was doing some very strange things. It was a taper helical, and it was a little bit difficult to build. And it was 7 inches by 1 1/4, and I put it on an AR-15. And once I shot it, I hear a twang, twang. I'm like, what's going on here? I've never heard this before. It was loud in my ear, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I finally realized that it was a spring in the buttstock that was drowning everything out. I didn't hear anything else come out of it. It was just amazing. And, I had to make that can out of aluminum because of the difficulty to build it. But I'll tell you what, I've never shot another 5.56 can as quiet as that. Yeah, but so we went into other designs and stuff, and we went into some jetted baffles, some M baffles, some K baffles, some Omega baffles. The stuff that's the most efficient right now that we're dealing with is helical baffles, and they seem to be working real well. I've got about a 6.5-inch by 1 1/8, I believe it is, maybe 1 1/4 can for a 6.5 Creedmoor. That one of the major manufacturers. We went out and demoed in front of about 30 of them. And the guy turned around and said, man, I could build the whole company just off this can. He couldn't believe how quiet it was. Yeah, it was amazing. 4 baffles, that's all it was. A lot of these guys are putting 10, 12, 16 baffles in a suppressor. I'm typically, on my 5.56 baffles, I'm running 3, with a front cap on there. And they're as good or better than what they're doing. I've got a helical can for a 240 Bravo. And it's 4 baffles, and you can stand right off the end of it, 4 feet off the end of it, and it's hearing safe, It's just a beautiful can to work with. But, that's the sort of things that we do here. Let's start back, World War II and things. They had baffles which were basically just flat washers with a hole in it. They used mesh. That seemed to be had a lot of cooling properties. They used either leather or neoprene wipes to dampen the sound with your OSS pistol. They had porter barrels. They had mesh and things in there to cool the sound off. But as you went along to do larger calibers, you had to have more volume to deal with it. So that was the problem with the older style cans. You didn't have anything that was changing the direction of the gases. So when I got involved in it, we first came up with the M baffle, and the M baffle had jetting on it, and what it did, it controlled the gases, allowed it to collapse the hole, bounce things around the side, and we were finding that we could get a smaller suppressor with much better reduction on it. So we did that for a while. Then we came up with a K baffle, and so Jim Ryan came up with the jetting pattern that we use on the K baffles. And we've been using that ever since. Every once in a while, we 45 or something like that, we come up with a little modification, or a smaller cam, we do a little bit more modification, but it's the basic design. So that came out of here. We also came up with the Omega baffle, worked with Joe Gadini on that with SWR. Joe and I came up with different designs on there. Joe had some different jetting than what I came up with, and then later on I took the jetting that Joe had, minimized it down a little bit more, seemed to be working a little bit better. But we did that, and they came up with that, and then the helical was probably the most efficient baffle of the whole stack. In fact, we have some videos on our site that if you take a look, you'll hear, as you're shooting downrange, you'll hear the bullet going downrange and cracking. But when you get the camera in front and aim towards the suppressor, you won't believe it. The thing is, it's just amazing how quiet the thing is, you know. So those are the basic designs that we came up with. I would say probably about 85% of the market is either taking one of the design and working with that, where they put a new notch into the hole or a jet or something like that. The basic design basically came out of here. They are doing some baffles that look like, you know, a cone baffle with a shroud on it, but when you take a look at it and section it, it's basically a washer and spacer, you know, modified. You know, instead of having a flat face, it has a cone face on it, but it's not much different than what they did in the 60s.